Hi everyone. I'm talking to anyone from last class, which is yesterday basically. What did we cover? I think Simon was writing something. And then if you have a mic, you can always raise your hand and tell us what did we cover yesterday. I almost went like, oh, last week. I'm like, oh girl, it's only Friday. Anyone? Okay, Simon is
We
writing
have,
something.
we have
Yes.
talked about the differences between traditional and alternative assessment.
Yes, we cover those. Anything else? Yeah, Simon is typing. I hope he enters soon. All right, that's true. So we've covered the differences between traditional and alternative assessment slash performance-based assessment. And we have also looked at, and I hope that's what Simon is writing, we have looked at, and please don't stop typing. You can always type and finish, even though maybe some of whatever that I'm going to say, it's what you're typing. So we've also looked at the characteristics, learning aspects promoted by, yes, that's what I was about to say, learning aspects that are promoted by project-based assessment in terms of affective, cognitive aspect, all right? And social aspect is also another one that we have spoken about. And the difference that now Ndidi also mentioned and Simon has mentioned. Great. And today we are going to look at the attributes of traditional versus performance-based assessment. So where are we? Just give me 1 second. Yeah, that's what we're going to look at, the attributes. What on earth is happening? Just give me 1 second. Yes. Yeah, that's what we're going to look at, the attributes. Where are the attributes? Okay, the attributes. Okay. When we're going to look at the attributes of assessment in terms of looking at the, let's say, okay, traditional and performance-based, and then we look at assessment activity. And most of the information that we're going to cover here is so much more of the content that we have covered yesterday. For example, most of the activities that are used in traditional are selection of response. So things like multiple choice questions, and then answers are there. It's just for the students to select. And then we've got performance. We have spoken in depth about performance-based task. I don't think I need to repeat myself with that. Your performance-based is like really doing the task, showing that they know by doing the task. Contrived activity. Contrived means they are not super authentic, all right? We're talking about authentic and inauthentic activities. So the nature here is inauthentic activity. They are just created for the sake of testing students. And then these activities on the performance base, they emulate, they reflect what really happens in the real world. And then the cognitive level. So cognitive levels is what we relate to Bloom taxonomy. So for traditional assessment, it looks at knowledge, comprehension, application. This knowledge, comprehension, application is what is in the module, but then this is the old Bloom taxonomy, the one that is not revised. But then the one that is revised, the Bloom taxonomy that is revised, look at remember, understand, and apply. Apply does not have to be here. So apply is supposed to be how do you do this? Oh, never mind. I thought I could scratch out apply. Apply falls under traditional. And then analyze, evaluate, and create. So this is the high level, high order thinking skills, high level thinking skills. And in the old version, we had analysis, synthesis, and I don't know what is the other one, the old version of Bloom taxonomy. I cannot think of it at the top of my head right now. And then development of solution. The solutions are basically created by the teacher in the traditional assessment, but then here performance-based assessment, the learners do partake in development of solutions. And then moving on, and objectivity is is easily achieved here because we have got pre-selected pre-selected responses, and there isn't much of the learners giving their own opinion, and yes, they aren't really giving their opinion. There aren't multiple answers to questions, which is what happens in the performance-based assessment. And that's why they say objectivity is quite difficult to achieve here, because they give their own answers, they give their own reflection, they tap onto their prior knowledge, and they can bring that to when they are giving their answers. And then evidence of mastery is indirect. We have spoken about this yesterday. Is indirect in terms of here learners do not really show that they understand by, let's say, performing a task. But you just assume that by the answers that they give in the pen and paper test, it's showing some sort of mastery, all right? But then here is direct because the learners have a chance to really carry out a task to show what they have acquired, what they have mastered. Okay, so that's what we have in terms of the attributes, and it's basically the revision of what we have covered yesterday. Do you have questions? Yes or no? Before we move on. Questions? And please do communicate with me. You can, it's easy. Just yes, no. Yes, there's a question. No, there's no question. We need to communicate here. And I cannot see who is in the class actually, because that is out.
We don't have a question, Miss. You can continue.
You don't have a question? All right. Thank you, Ndili. Okay. No question. Thank you, Justina and Martha. And Penhafon. All right. Next, we are moving on to, what are we moving on to? It's Friday, guys. Are we excited that it's Friday? Okay, let's continue. We are going now to look at some of the advantages of performance-based assessment. All right. So when it comes to performance-based assessment, the advocates for performance-based assessment mention that there is more, the assessment emphasizes more what is in line with the instruction than the traditional assessment. Other experts agree that the teaching to the test is really highly unethical. So that's what happens in the traditional assessment. And teaching to the test is actually encouraged when it comes to teaching to the test is actually not so much encouraged to the teaching to the test is highly unethical, okay, as it has been mentioned in the traditional assessment. And teaching to the test is actually encouraged when it comes to performance-based assessment. And maintaining the performance-based assessment is viewed as having a better possibility to measure complex skills, all right, and communication, which are important competencies and disciplinary knowledge needed in today's society, all right. In short, performance-based assessments are better suited to measure the attainment. Okay, hold on. Alicia's, okay, I'll come to you. Oh yeah, was that your question yesterday? I'll come to I'll talk to you in a little bit. Sorry. I can't multitask. I know people say that women can multitask. I know. I can't really do that very well. Just give me a second, yeah? Let me just finish my sentence quickly. So when it comes to performance-based assessment, it is better in that it's suitable for measuring the attainment of the 21st century skills than the traditional assessment. All right, 21st century skills, the things of collaboration, the social skills, the affective skills, the metacognitive skills. Those are all part of the 21st century skills, the soft skills, being able to function in society. All right. And what is the difference between AA and alternative A? Okay, AA is alternative assessment, basically. Alternative assessment or authentic assessment. They are both the same they are both the same. All right? Does that answer your question? So I guess authentic assessment and alternative assessment, they mean the same thing. They are used synonymously, all right? Interchangeably. You use the word, it's the same thing. I think that should have answered your question. And then, okay, maybe I should wait for you to finish writing. Okay, but I'll come back to that. So critics of the performance-based assessment maintain, okay, all right, good. So the critics of the performance-based assessment maintain that the performance assessment can be highly subjective, and even though developing functional scoring rubrics and other standards of evaluating the performance of the performance that is being assessed, it can be very hard to achieve, all right? Because applying the standard consistently across group of oral performance research projects and portfolio can be very difficult. So that is to say that when it comes to performance-based assessment, I mean, you have got things like interviews, you have got projects, we have got oral presentations, and all that kind of stuff. And then to maintain some sort of to maintain like a standard equal measurement or evaluation or assessment of the learner's performance, what we try to do is create rubrics, for example, or checklist or whatever means to assess the standards, the standard of the learner's performance. You can have that, but then the people who are criticizing the performance-based assessment say that it's really difficult for one to stay consistent when you're marking the learners, when you're marking their performance-based assessments. All right, so that's what we have here in the last part. Now we are moving on, and performance-based tools focus on growth and performance of the learners, and they just don't look at the product, the end result of what they have mastered, but you look through the process of learning, like their growth, the weaknesses and their strength when they are performing. More authentic tools such as portfolio, independent project, journals, etc. let the learners express their knowledge of the content in their own way by using various intelligence. All right. And I don't know, have you covered multiple intelligence by Gardner? All right. There are people who are good at speaking. There are people who are good at movement. There are people who are good at, we have got word. We have got psychomotor, like that is the movement. There are those who are good at doing, there are those who are good at visual. Do you understand? Like we have got different intelligence, right? So when we use the performance-based assessment, because it looks at, it caters for different kind of intelligence, yes, then obviously that measure better what the learners are capable of, rather than just focusing on the focusing on the word. How do you call that? Okay, anyways, rather than just using the pen and paper, which focuses on, writing the words, like using of the language, that may not be good for learners who are good at movement, for example. All right, but with performance-based assessment, it caters for all different kinds of intelligence. And then we have got Rivi believes that the emphasis of PBA, that is now performance-based assessment, is the ability of the learners to apply his or her knowledge and skills to real-life situation. And we have spoken quite a lot in depth about how the tasks in performance-based assessment slash as well as alternative assessment are a reflection of what happens in the real world. Now we are going to look at 5 main points of performance-based assessment. What are those? All right, what are those? First, okay, one, performance-based assessment focuses on complex learning in terms of, it looks at other aspects that are involved in learning rather than just cognitive, like mastery of knowledge. You also look at other aspects that, like the ones that we have spoken about yesterday, the ones that Simon has mentioned here, affective, for example, metacognitive, and social. Right, and then engaging into higher order thinking and problem solving skills. So the higher order thinking skills, these are the ones that we have spoken about in relation to Bloom taxonomy. We have got creation, we have got evaluation, and we have got, what is the third one? We have got creation, evaluation, and analyzing. All right, creating, evaluating, and analyzing. Yes. And then it involves a wide range of active responses rather than learners just being the passive learning knowledge and then saying it as they have heard it from, let's say, in terms of traditional. Here they are very active in their responses. They give their opinion. They are really engaged in the learning process. And then it involves challenging tasks that require multiple steps. So, for example, if the learners are to carry out a research, then obviously research does have a number of steps that they need to follow. And also it requires other skills. Okay, they need to collaborate, they need to work with other people. Do you understand? They have to collect information, and then they bring the information together, and then they compile the information to create one project or product. And then number 5, requires significant commitment of the learner's time and effort. So it's not just study, memorize the content, and then go write the test and forget about it. But rather, when it comes to PBA, there's so much more time that the learners need to invest in their project, and they need to make so much more effort. All right, just imagine if you have a presentation, what do? You collect the information, you create your presentation, and then you practice and practice, and then you come and present in the classroom. All right, and then you get feedback, and then you go improve. And then if you don't do as well, then you come back again and perform. You are given multiple chances to improve your performance. You can be given multiple chances to improve. All right, and then here we have got several other advantages of performance-based assessment. For example, they tend to stimulate real-life context. Learners have the opportunity to practice authentic activities that they might, encounter in real life. It's not just an activity that is in the textbook that is not related to what is happening around them. And these activities help them to transfer skills for various real-life settings. And then, as we've mentioned a number of times, these skills they can use in the classroom, and then they can also use outside the classroom. All right. The skills are supposed to be transferable to what really happens outside the classroom. So when they go to offices, when they interact with people in shops, or when they finish a high school and they get employment, do you understand? Those skills, they can still use them. Okay, and then collaborative working is encouraged in the PBA. Alternative assessment assists teachers to have a better understanding of the learner's learning, all right? Because you are looking at multiple aspects of the learner, all right? So you just don't look at their answers that they've written, but other aspects that that the learners employ in the performance of a task. You measure that as well. That is looking at the learner's product that is, looking at the learner's product rather than the score, can allow the teachers then to get further insight regarding the learner's knowledge and skills. All right, so that's what we have regarding the advantages of PBA. Do you have questions? That's what we're supposed to talk about here. Sorry. I'm talking too much. I want to cover this, like finish the whole unit today. Questions? But I hope I don't lose you. You are following, right? Do you understand, or do you understand most of what I have just covered? Or am I talking to myself? Yes, Priscilla. Are we good? Thank you, Christofina. Well understood. Priscilla, you raised your hand, or was that a mistake?
Oh, I'm saying we are following them. Did you understand?
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mm.
Okay, and we are moving on. What is the next? Now we're going to look at the, okay, we're fine. Okay, great. All right, objective 3, which is explaining how planning and delivering of the methods of traditional that are involved in methods of traditional assessment, alternative assessment, and performance-based assessment. Like, how are they done and implemented? So that's what we're going to look at now. All right. Okay. So first thing first, okay, the introduction. All right, one thing that you have to understand and really keep in mind is that when it comes to assessment, the nature of assessment just gives part of what the learners can do, not the whole picture. All right, it's not the whole picture, but just part of it. So assessment just give a sample, all right, of what the learners can do, what skills they have mastered, what they are able to do. And then these samples may, okay, as an example of the sample, we can look at it in terms of their behavior, the product that they have created, knowledge, and their performance. All right. Assessment is a continuous ongoing process that involves examining and then observing learners' behavior, listening to their ideas. We really need to listen to their ideas and developing questions to promote contextual understanding. So we are not just learning bits of knowledge here and there, but there should be a context in which we are to evaluate the learner's understanding, all right, when we are assessing them. So it's very critical to teachers, what teachers really need to do is the use of assessment in to both inform and then guide instruction. All right. So when you assess, it's not just to give a grade, but also to guide your own teaching. I mean, what do you need to improve? How do you need to teach? Like, what are some of the changes that you have to involve in your instruction? And then using a wide variety of assessment tools allow the teachers then to determine which instructional strategies are effective, which need to be modified. All right. So here, that's what we mean by informing and guiding your instruction. An assessment will always be used to inform administrators, learners themselves, as well as parents. But in the past, it was expressed only by grade. It's like, oh, how did my child do? All that the parent all that the parent can get is a report card of what the learner has done, all right, of their child, what they have done. But nowadays, there'll be parent meetings, and then when you go to the parents meeting, if they have time, then they can talk about the progress of the learner, or you can go there whenever you want to know the progress of your child, for example. And then the teacher's role in the changing landscape of assessment requires a change from merely a collector of data to a facilitator of a learner's understanding of scientific principles. So here we mean by, okay, what is there a hand? Something. Yes, Priscilla?
The slides, ma'am, they're not moving.
Oh, the slides. Okay, hold on. Just one second. Thank you. Yeah, because we are just talking about the introduction of the assessment, and then we'll talk about the steps in just a little bit, right? So now we are moving on. So when it comes to planning the traditional assessment and alternative assessment, or even performance-based assessment, there are certain steps that we need to follow when it comes to planning the assessment. So the first one is to plan. Here you need to determine what are you going to assess, how are you going to assess, when are you going to assess, why are you assessing? So that is choose purpose. Why are you assessing, and who are you going to assess? That's the audience. All right. And then the second step is you now need to collect the data, collect the information from both formal, informal, traditional, authentic assessment. All right. You need to collect. And then the third step is for you to organize the information that you have collected through various assessment to facilitate reporting. So you have to organize, like how are you going to organize the data? For example, in the junior secondary certificate, in the syllabus, you see, okay, whatever subject that you're teaching, there will be a form, continuous assessment form. That's where now you enter the grades of the learners. All right. So, and then if it's now a secondary level, how are you going to organize the data? Are you going to use Excel sheet? Like, how are you going to organize the data? And then number 3, then evaluate the learner's progress towards reaching the stated goals. You from the information that you get in stage 3, then you evaluate how are they doing, how are they progressing, are they behind, are they on task, or are they really doing very well? For those who are behind, what do you then do? Okay. And then the next step is report the information gathered to the targeted audience, for example, the learners, the parents, or the administrator. So here in the continuous assessment, so when you see that the learners are not doing very well and you want them to improve it, because you want all your learners to pass, then when you inform them, hopefully they will improve. Those who are lagging behind, and then those who are doing well, inform them as well. Okay. And then at the end of the year, we give reports to parents or the principal or whoever, the administrators who need the information on the learner's performance. And then next, what then do you need to consider when developing assessment? All right. Here we have got what to assess. You need to determine the purpose, just like what happened in the steps above. The purpose, the audience, who are you assessing, what content and what task are you going to use. And then next we have got when do you assess? Determine if the assessment is ongoing. Is it formative, ongoing, like it's happening as you are teaching? Or is it summative, which is at the end of instruction? All right, at the end of the chapter, at the end of the semester. Like, how are you going to assess? When are you going to assess? Not how, but when. And then how to organize the information. Determine how to gather and organize information to make it easily accessible for reporting to right audience. So here you have to decide how are you going to organize the results, the data, so that it's very easy to read. All right, it's very easy to read and understand. Okay. Are you going to use Excel? How are you going to add up? Are you going to put in formulas? Do you understand? So you have formulas in the Excel so that you don't have to calculate every result that the learner has. Do you understand? So I hope you know these things, right? You can enter let's say you can enter formulas to like add up or multiply. Do you understand? The results of all the students, and then you drag the column, and then it gives you the answers. All right, it gives you all the results, the marks that the learners have attained. And next, how to organize. And then next, how to report. Then how are you going to report the data? And then that now depends on the audience. Because when you are reporting to, let's say, administrator, it's a little bit different from how and when you report to the learners themselves, or when you're reporting to the parents. So you have to make sure that how you report it is going to be understandable as well. The format is easy to be shared. For example, in some schools, all right, some of the schools, private schools basically, that is something that I have noticed, is that the learners can have access to their results on their student portal, like you guys who have your student portal, and then the parents also can have access to their kids, or their to their kids, to their children's report. Like they can have access to the portal to see how they are performing. Okay. All right. So far, do you have questions regarding the steps and regarding the consideration when you are planning? So we covered this, the steps, and then we have covered consideration. Any questions? Yes or no? Should we continue, or should I explain something? Oh, come on. Okay, we shall continue. All right. Okay. Now we are going to look at the criteria. So in the development and use of classroom assessment tools, there are certain issues that must be addressed in relation to the following 5 important criteria. All right. We have got 5 criteria that are important, and we have to consider them. So the first one is purpose and impact. How will assessment be used, and will it impact on the instruction and selection of the curriculum? All right. So here is the purpose and the impact of the assessment. Is it going to improve instruction? Is it going to improve the curriculum itself, like the syllabus? How is it really going to be used? And then the second part is validity and fairness. Does it measure what it intends to measure? So here we're talking about validity. I hope you remember that. Does it really measure what it says that it's going to measure? For example, does it allow learners to demonstrate both what they know and what they are able to do? Okay. And then the next one is reliability, which is the collected data reliable? All right. Is it trustworthy? Is it dependable across application within the classroom, the school, and the region? So whatever data that you have collected, is it really trustworthy? Does it reflect what it says it's going to reflect? And then number 4, significance. Does it address content and skills that are valued by and reflect current thinking in the field? For example, I'm just talking to myself here. Number 4, so does it really reflect the 21st century thinking? All right. Or is it whatever the thinking or the skills that are being measured, are they really applicable to what is happening right now? And then number 5 is efficiency. Is the methods of assessment consistent with the time available in the classroom setting? For example, here, when you know that you only have one lesson left, it might not be, for example, be a good idea for you to, it might not be a good idea for you to, what do you say, to give them a research project that will not be covered. No, I mean, okay, how do I, okay, let me rephrase this. So it will be almost impossible for you to give the learners a research, like to carry out a complete research and write a research paper within one class. All right. Within one class. All right. So the teacher needs to test on content aspects that they spent so much time on as well. So that is now when it comes to efficient. I'm sorry, I told you that I am not very good at multitasking, like reading the comment and then explaining together at the same time is kind of like challenging. But anyways, the third criteria is reliability. And I've explained that. So is the collected data reliable? Is it trustworthy across application within the classroom? So can you use that data to make decisions, such as whether the student have passed or failed? That's an example. Okay, moving on. Wait, are we done? No. Okay, we have. I think so. Okay, do you have any questions? So here, maybe I should just say, as a conclusion to this criteria, the steps, and what else did we cover? The criteria, the steps, and the consideration and planning. So what you need to keep in mind is that before designing a test, you as a teacher, you must consider looking at other teaching materials, to get both the new and the old ideas on, creating tests. And when you write your own test questions, you have to make sure that it's valid to what you really to what you have taught your learners. All right. And then the number of questions that you provide or you put in the test, it should be related to how much time you have spent on the topic in the classroom, either in or outside the classroom. So how much time have they really spent on a certain topic? So if they spend way too much time, then obviously there should be a number of questions, like more questions on that content that had been covered for a long time, in comparison or in contrast to the content that had been covered in a short period of time. And then that you as a teacher, you need to design the test around what was the main focus of the class, rather than on something that was just spent a couple of days talking about. All right. So those are some of the things that you have to consider. Now we are moving on to the next topic. Next, the last aspect. Is it the last aspect? Yes. Yeah, the last aspect, I think. Now we are going to look at the assessment format. All right. So assessment can be divided into 3 stages. We have got the baseline. The baseline is the starting point of the learner's understanding. So let's say at the beginning of the year or the beginning of the term, right? And then we have got the formative, and then we've got the summative, right? The wide range of targets and skills that can be addressed in the classroom assessment require the use of a variety of assessment formats. So we are going to look at some of the different formats that you can use in the classroom, all right? Some formats and the stages of assessment in which they mostly likely would occur will be shown in the following table. So we're going to look at the table that has got different type of assessment, and then they are divided according to the stages. All right. So here we have got the stages on this side, here the format, all right, and then the nature. Okay. So how many stages did we say? I just spoke about that in a little bit. How many stages?
I think there are 3.
Yes, 3, of course. There are 3. We have got baseline, and then we have got formative, and then we have got summative. So we have got the baseline here, the nature of the baseline assessment. We have got oral or written responses based on individual experiences. And then it assesses the prior knowledge. So since it's at the very beginning, yes, thank you, Martha, it's 3. So here is baseline. And then we have got paper and pencil tests, which will have questions or question items of multiple choice, short answer essay, constructed answer, written report. And then it assesses the learner's acquisition of knowledge and concept, and this can be considered as formative, all right? And then we have got embedded. So embedded is like inserted, all right? Inserted assessment, embedded assessment. So assessment, it assesses an aspect of the learner's learning in the context of the learning experience. So it's like when the learning is happening, then you assess the certain part of their learning during the teaching and learning process. And it's part of the formative, all right? So here we're looking at the stages. We have got formative. And then moving on, we have got oral reports. So require communication by the learners that demonstrated scientific understanding, like whatever understanding that they have, but then they present it orally, like by communicating, and this could be formative. Is there a difference between baseline and diagnostic assessment? It depends on when you do the assessment. So baseline is like the very beginning, and diagnostic assessment, I mean, in a sense, they are the same, as long as you do it at the very beginning before you start teaching, for example. Does that make sense, Priscilla? They are very much related. Priscilla, did I answer your question? Oh, yes. Okay, good. And then moving on, we have got interview, assesses individual or group performance before, during, and after an experience. Okay, you can use interviews. And then this could be considered as formative. And then we have got performance task, require learners to create or take an action related to a problem, issue, or concept. All right, so here performance task can be either formative and summative. Okay, formative and summative can be both. And then checklist. Can't diagnostic assessment happen? Yeah, diagnostic it can happen after starting after the starting point. It can. It's possible. Because the idea is just to check, find out something like their strength or their weaknesses. And that could be later later in the teaching and learning process. And then checklist to monitor, record anecdotal information. Right, so that's what we have. Where are we? Yeah, checklist, anecdotal. So this is based on personal account rather than facts or research. Okay, and then this could be regarded as formative, both at the formative and summative summative stage. Okay, and then moving on, I'm just looking at the time and I'm freaking out a little bit. Investigative project require learners to explore a problem or concern stated either by the teacher or the learner. And then this could be, that's interesting. It's just at the summative stage. And then extended or unit project require the application of knowledge and skills in an open-ended setting. And this they suggest that it will be at the summative stage. And then we've got portfolios. Assist learners in the process of developing and reflecting on the purpose and on a purposeful collection of learners generated data, which can be both formative, be at the formative and summative stage. Okay, and that's what we have there. So we need to use a variety of tools when we are, assessing our learners. Okay, not just stick to the one that you're comfortable with, but use various tools because we want to cater for different learning styles and intelligences. All right, to measure a variety of aspects of the learners learning, conceptual development, and skill acquisition and application, you need to use a variety of tools. And then using various data collection formats also helps us yield a deeper and a more meaningful understanding of what the learners know and what they are able to do, which is really the primary purpose. Like, that is the essential purpose of assessment. All right. So that's why we need to use a number of assessment when we are teaching our learners. Okay. And quickly, oh, thank you, Jesus. The traditional assessment, the most frequently tools that are used in traditional assessment, we have got multiple choice. I think we've spoken so much extensively about these tools. So we've got multiple choice type questions, fill in the blanks, short answers, true, false, and opinion or fact, matching items. So those are what we have there in the traditional assessment. And then here, did we talk about these steps already? Why is it here at the end? But anyways, okay. And then here we have got some steps that you have to consider when you are creating authentic assessment. So you need to identify the standards. All right. So what criteria are you going to use to assess the learner's performance? And then develop learning objectives. And then number 3, identify the target performance. So what learning objectives do you want the learners to develop? And then identify the target performance. What kind of performance are they going to do? And then you need to develop a performance criteria. All right, performance. So you need to develop the performance criteria. So which criteria are you going to really assess your learners? And then with those criteria, you create a scoring rubric. All right. A scoring rubric. How do you call it? So we've got scoring rubric or scoring checklist that you're going to use when you're assessing their performance, and then design an instructional activity. So to assess now this, to ensure that the learners have attained these objectives and then the performance criteria that you have created, what kind of activity or task are you going to have the learners, what kind of task are you going to have the learners perform? All right. And yeah, that's the end of the content. Do you have questions? That was really fast, but I hope I didn't lose you in the process. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
I think there is no question. Yes.
Okay, no question from Dili. Thank you, Dili. Fast and clear. Okay, but I hope, okay, fast and clear. That's good. When you go in the classroom, please don't lecture your learners to just cover the content, because you can always continue in the next class. All right. Make sure that you do not lose your learners in the process. For you, ladies and gentlemen, I trust that you understand what I'm doing, right? Like what I'm talking about. But with your learners, you have to be more compassionate. All right. Don't do as like going through everything so fast. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Justina. Any questions? All right. I see that Martha was writing, but maybe no. Okay, before we go, so what did we cover in this unit? Let's go back quickly. What did we cover? What do you remember us covering in the lesson? You can raise your hand and then you say, you can write, you can type, anything that you have, that you remember covering in the classroom in this specific class.
I have learned what I need to consider when planning assessment.
Okay, we have covered that in Unit 4. Okay, can you give a specific example, Dili? What do you need to consider?
For example, what to assess
Mm-hmm.
and when to do it.
Okay, thank you. Other contributions? I mean, we are 19 in the classroom. Okay, now we are 18. Stages? Come on, Martha, you have been writing for a long time and it's just stages. Okay, stages of? I was expecting a paragraph from Martha. It's like she was typing for a long time. But it's okay. No pressure. PBA and AA. Joseph, what about PBA and AA? Advantages of performance based learning, yes. All right, since we just have 2 minutes, I'll go quickly. But again, keep writing. Yeah, means of assessment, not learning. Okay. So we've looked at the definition and description of traditional assessment, performance-based assessment, alternative assessment. We have looked at we are distinguished, compare and contrast the 3 types of assessment: traditional, performance-based, and alternative assessment. And then we have looked at their attributes, and then we have looked, the last aspect that we have looked at is the consideration, like what do you need to consider when you are planning and implementing the assessment. So that we have covered in Unit 4. All right. And the steps of assessment, yes, those are the last part that we have covered. All right. So that's all that we have covered. If you have no questions, that's the end of the unit. And if you have questions, you're welcome to send me a message on my email, unam.na, or you can message me via Moodle. All right, you can message me via Moodle. That's the end of Unit 4. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for coming to class. Thank you for your contribution. I will see you next week for Unit 5. I hope you get some time to just go through review Unit 5 before we start class. All right? Thank you. Take care of yourself. It's the weekend, but COVID still exists, so please do take care of yourself, and it's very real. All right? Goodbye and thank you.